I hear this all the time. I don't know where to start. I don't know what's missing. And so I see a blank space in someone's garden with no progress. I still do this sometimes too. A garden is less about having a fully formed style identity and more about first starting with what you're actually drawn to. Then that creates the creative juices flowing. And from that point, you can edit and build upon that. So today I'm going to show you how I took this garden from this to this by following the age old advice of trusting your gut and going with your intuition. Hi, I'm Jessica, a gardener in the Seattle area, Zone 8B, and I like sharing how fun and flexible gardens can be. I do like landscape design principles, but I think the main focus of a garden is to be fun and to show your personality and show what you're drawn to. There's a saying that there's a lid for every pot, and I think that applies perfectly to gardening. Sure, there's principles and there's foundations, but really, the garden should be something that makes you smile. So let me show you how this bed had some humble beginnings.
This is what our yard looked like when we first bought the house. The main thing was this weird paver situation. It was just kind of in a random staggered pattern, and then it went to like this hopscotch style path that connected the driveway to the house with patchy grass everywhere. So we just popped in some solar lights and 2 pots to kind of frame out the area. The next year, my husband said that he wanted to dig up all the grass and reseed it. It was just very patchy and full of weeds. So then at that time I said, well, why don't we turn this corner into a garden? Because it's just a random patch of grass that is very patchy, and who's going to play on that? And then that's when I suggested, hey, while you're at it, can we fix this paver situation, kind of square it off, make a real walkway to the driveway? And so we bought extra pavers, kind of widened it, and he agreed. And so then, as far as for the plants went, we had a bunch of like potted plants on the back deck. And so we brought them forward and kind of just popped them in the ground just to see how they would do in this new bed. Most of those potted plants were actually old Easter baskets of spring bulbs. So I actually just pulled out the entire basket, popped it in the ground like as a bouquet, and that was kind of fun to watch it come up like that. We also had rosemary that was surviving in a pot for many years, and then as soon as we put it in the ground, it died, or so we thought. It later pops up like 6 to 8 inches away, but that was the original kind of focal point. And when it went, we also decided to get rid of the carnations because they weren't blooming for some reason and they were just looking kind of raggedy anyway. So we pulled those. Those were the first changes. The next spring, as we were starting to see the bulbs pop up, we were getting really excited to get to the garden center and start adding more stuff. And so then that's when we found the peonies that we liked and we popped those in. But then we noticed that this was a very spring forward garden and not much was going on the rest of the year. So that's when we started to decide, okay, how can we spice this up a little bit? Then we move on to the next year, and that's where we got a bunch of perennials in the Costco bags at Costco. I got a bunch of daylilies, hollyhocks, a bunch of plants. And so then you can see the peonies stayed, a lot of the bulbs stayed, but then this time we planted all of the daylilies in the front and as the border. The hollyhocks went in the back for some height, and this was really when the playing really started. Here we are at the next spring, and you can see the peonies are very well established now. The daylilies popped up really fast and much thicker this time. The hollyhocks are taking off. This was their last year though, because they had rust even the first year. And so it was not something I wanted to kind of battle and deal with. But now we had kind of a lushness and height and really starting to look fun. This is what it looked like in fall. Much bigger improvement than from previous years. And then this was what it started to look with at winter. We'd also popped in some roses that year as well. And so finally there was something to look at besides just flat dirt in the wintertime. Each spring just kept getting better and better with how big the plants were growing. This is when I also had the camellia in there to try and get some vertical height and evergreen interest in the winter back there. But now the issue was everything was starting to get jungly. I'd kind of overpacked everything with my excitement. So this year I had to start editing and moving things around to get better airflow for the plants, especially these roses that we had popped in there. So in this spring, here you can see I have the camellia in the back, I have the tree now over in the side, the evergreen azalea over in the other side, creating a triangle of anchor points. I've got that front border of daylilies and the roses and the peonies. Oh, it was so fun. And it's starting to really grow up. And again, more editing had to happen. I was just adjusting plants as needed. I added some foxglove to get that vertical spiky height again, which I really loved that more than I thought I would. And this is just really when the garden started to show off. You know, they say like sleep, creep, leap. This was definitely leap. It was a lot of fun as I was out there working on the garden, and neighbors were walking by, walking their dogs and commenting on, you know, how beautiful the garden looked. It really keeps you going as a gardener.
So there you have it. That's where my cottage garden is at now. And I do have plans to change it in the future. If you'd like to hear more about what my plans are, you can check out my first ever garden tour, my January 2026 garden tour. See you soon.